I'm Dr. Leon Stutzman, aka Doc, with another one of these little videos designed to help you to get through these strange days in which we find ourselves. And these are strange days indeed. This week I'm talking about inspiration, because in strange days you need to live an inspired life. How do you live inspired? Well, let me tell you a story. I was scheduled to hold a revival in Bonham, Texas. I was 21 years old, just starting out traveling, not in the nation, but Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. I was expecting to have a great revival when I dreamed a dream. And in the dream, this woman pastor closed out my meeting in the middle of the week. It just happened that the pastor of the Bonham church was a lady pastor, and so I walked on eggshells for the first 4 nights of that meeting. I did everything exactly the way I was supposed to do them. I preached dull, dead, dry, boring messages because I didn't want to preach or do anything that would upset the apple cart and cause her to close my meeting out. And I was absolutely bored. It was 75 miles from where we lived to that little church in Bonham, Texas, back roads, one stop sign between our house and the church in Bonham, in the middle of nowhere. On Friday night of that meeting, I stopped at that stop sign. I looked up to heaven through my headliner and I said, Lord, I am tired of this. This is just a terrible meeting. Nothing is happening. I'm bored. The people are bored. I've got to do something tonight that's going to shake things up. Went to church, preached a dead, dull, dry, boring message, looked out across that little congregation. I thought, what can I do? And I had a flash of inspiration. And I said, is there anyone here that wants to fall out under the power? Now, you may not be familiar with that term, falling out under the power, but if you came up in the charismatic revival of the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, people just hit the floor. Pray for them, they hit the floor. I can explain that from a psychological and a physiological perspective, but I don't have time in a 6-minute video. I said, does anyone here want to fall out under the power? Finally, one little lady at the back of the church stood. I walked back, and when I say little lady, she was a little, tiny, frail, older lady. I laid hands on her because there wasn't anyone there to catch her. I caught her at the same time. Laid hands on her, caught her. Laid her on the linoleum floor. I was suddenly inspired, and so I started pulling out the first person on the inside pew and laid hands on them. And by the time I got to the front of the church, there was a row of people on either side of that aisle falling out under the power, laying there prostrate under the power of God. And the place broke loose in revival. The revival went on for 2 more weeks, and we really did have a revival. And every night there are miracles that manifested. Why? Because I had a little inspiration. How do you get inspiration? Well, let me suggest a couple of things from the story. One is you recognize things aren't working. Now, if things aren't working, you have to do something different, so you need to dig down deep to get inspiration. I knew that things weren't working in that meeting, and I stopped at that stop sign. That's the second thing you do. You stop. Just wait. Wait on inspiration. I've discovered, living an inspired life as I have for over 50 years now, I've discovered that if you'll stop and wait for the inspiration, things work better in life when you live an inspired life. Get the inspiration. Stop and get the inspiration. And then you have to proceed on. What are you going to do? That inspiration hit me just in a moment. Who wants to fall out under the power? Well, that's some craziness, but those were crazy days. And it was a little Pentecostal church in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and it worked. Sometimes inspiration doesn't sound like it's really going to make a lot of sense, but if you know you're inspired and you operate out of that inspiration, anything can happen. We're in Ohio now for over 40 years because we were inspired to start a church in Lima, Ohio. That was just crazy. People thought we had lost our ever-loving minds because by that time we were quite successful. Traveling ministry, traveling the nation, literally holding great revivals, some that lasted 6.5 weeks. Start a church in Lima, Ohio. Why? Because I was inspired to do it. What are you going to do that's inspired? How are you going to live your inspired life? I'm going to talk some more about inspiration on Wednesday and Friday. I'll show you how to get spiritual inspiration. I'll show you how to get secular inspiration, because you need to live an inspired life in strange days. That's my message to you. Be inspired. This week at Aspire Church, I have got a word from God. It's a Christmas message, but it's a Christmas message designed for these strange days in which we find ourselves. A message that will help you to get through this Christmas season and it promises to be a really strange Christmas season with the surge in the pandemic. You want to join me Sunday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. AspireChurch.tv is a live stream feed. Aspire Church TV Facebook. That's Facebook, Aspire Church TV. Live stream, AspireChurch.tv. And then mark this on your calendar. Put it in your smartphone. New Year's Eve, December 31st at 6 p.m., our annual New Year's Eve service. I have got a prophetic word for 2021, a word that you need to hear. More than that, a word you need to operate in. I'll show you how to do it on New Year's Eve. I'm Dr. Leon Stutzman, a.k.a. Doc. I'll see you again this week on one of these little videos.